It's fine. Why the hell? Who's yo-yo roasting?
Yeah, okay.
The small one. Why the hell would I do yo-yo? Ask girl.
Well, I've just had a call from Mary today.
You speak so much bullshit. No, I'm not. Go, go back to yours number.
Yo,
Right
you
now.
just lied.
If you're lying, Ellie
No,
lied.
I'm not.
More shit comes out Ellie's mouth than my ass.
Who said that? Who said that? Who said that line? Who did you nick that from? I've got proof.
From the internet.
I promise you. You said it.
Okay, just because we're 30 days before Pesach, so start little in honor of Pesach is of course one of the big things on Erev Pesach people do is they sell the chametz. Yeah, there's a big debate about selling proper chametz gomel. Now, nothing wrong with the sale per se. In fact, they asked a very easy question. I think not the Chiddush, John was with that with it. I think it was the basic soul was asked about on Shemitah. Very interesting. He said in Shemitah, so there's a lot of opposition to the Heter Mechira in Eretz Yisrael selling Eretz Yisrael wholesale to an Arab. So the big question they asked was, well, what's the difference between that and selling a chametz? So I think it was the basic soul said no, there's a big difference. Big difference. He said on Pesach, HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't want a yid to have chametz in his house. So selling to the goy, it's doing what Hashem wants, getting rid of the chametz. You can destroy the chametz before Pesach, you can throw it in a river before Pesach, or you can sell it before Pesach, but the Ratzon HaTorah is that a yid shouldn't have chametz in his house on Pesach. That's the Ratzon HaTorah, so you can sell it to a goy as well. But the Ratzon of the Torah, Hashem's Ratzon on Shemitah is the land should rest. So they're selling to a goy, it might not be your land anymore, but the Ratzon Hashem hasn't been fulfilled. There'll still be somebody ploughing the land in Eretz Yisrael on Pesach, working the land on Pesach. So there it goes against the Ratzon of the Torah. So selling it, the problem is not the actual, can you sell to a goy? Of course you can. The question is though, do you really, really mean it? Are you really sincere? So how the Bechira actually works is very, very clever. Let's say the Rav's got 100 people who sold chametz through him, so he's their shliach, he's made a kinyan on all their chametz. Now, over the years they've gone better and better at this, in that you have to now fill out a form detailing what you're selling broadly, you know, the cereals, your whiskey, or whatever it is you're selling, and also where you'll find it in the kitchen, which is really very correct, because it's a serious sale. The old objection to it is, yeah, people take it as a bit of a joke, you know, selling to a goy. So it's got to be a real sale. In Switzerland, yeah, you've got to give key, and you got to give some money for the goy, you know, whole thing. And in South Africa, Rabbi also tells the goy randomly, I think it could be in Switzerland, they might do it as well, but certainly in South Africa, go to a few of them on Pesach, ask them for the chametz. So everyone is told, he said the goy will randomly pick a few where he's coming out of his chametz. Now he has to pay for it, it's not a freebie, he's got to pay, but just so you realise you really sold your chametz, the goy will randomly turn up. Now it's very clever how it works. Let's imagine it's £1,000,000 worth of chametz. Let's just make the maths easy. So how it works is like this: on Erev Pesach, before it's Osa to Osa Banar, the 4th hour, the Rav will the goy will sit. The Rav will sit with the goy, and the goy will give him, let's say, £100 deposit. He makes all the kinyanim they do then. They do kinyan kesef and all the kinyanim you can do with the goy, and then what they do is very clever. Let's like this year. So Pesach goes Sunday to Sunday. So the goy now has to pay the balance of £999,990 by the last minute of Pesach. Let's say Pesach goes at 7:52. So by 7:52, once you Pesach, he has to come forward with the balance. If he doesn't pay the balance, then he agrees to sell back the chametz to the Jew. So his mamash his, he owes you the money, and Taki, if he comes round, he's got to pay you, whatever it is, 5 bottles of whiskey, he's got to pay you whatever the 5 bottles of whiskey happens. So, and then if he doesn't turn up with the balance on Moshe Pesach, he then agrees to sell it back, and that's how it works. So, yeah.
Why don't we have an estimated value of what your chametz is?
It's funny, and Rabbi also does, he writes that on it, a little box to tick, you know, approximate what it's worth, yeah, they do.
I've never filled out a price.
Could be his, I think he actually makes his own nusach. It could be, it's high soft, I mean, it's an extra dick duck. To make it more real that you really are selling it. Now, funny story happened with Aza, my brother. He decided he was going to do it himself, and he took all his whiskey round to John, the Irish swimmer, in the cultural centre. And he did it with him. He gave him, I think, a fiver. He gave him the box of whiskey, put it in his flat in the cultural centre, and came around Motzi Pesach for the balance, or the whiskey. It's been nicked. It's been nicked. That was nicked like nobody's business. Yeah. You know, that was well enjoyed during Pesach. It's been nicked. But he can't challenge it because it's not.
He can challenge him.
Well, he clearly got nicked, so he said it's not my fault. You know. Yeah.
Even if he drank it, it's not his fault. He's allowed to.
No, he's allowed to drink it, but then he has to pay. If he said I drank it, so he'll pay you.
He's very clever. He went a step.
He was step further. He said he got nicked. Who said the Irish? Yeah, who said the Irish?
He checked up and.
Right. So he lost it all, and he accepted it. Look, that's the reality of selling your chametz.
Last year I reminded myself after this month.
Oh,
I didn't sell any of my whiskies.
right.
There's nothing I could do. I put it next, somebody told me put it next to the bins. If it's there after Pesach, you can take it. Every day Pesach, I checked the box was there. Last day Pesach, I had slashed in the bin one by one, all the open ones, and the rest were gone. Last
Really, thank you that they went.
I had a good thing.
Yeah, similar thing. But Lemaisa, it's a great story, right? It's a very funny story. But Lemaisa, it shows the truth that you're a Catholic as mafkir, right? There's a Rob in London, very close to Rav. He tells people, please do not give me whiskey for shlachmanos. Only give it. He said, if you're going to put a bottle in it, please only put a bottle of wine. He said he doesn't particularly love whiskey. He said he doesn't sell chametz gomel, and he said he will pour it out on Pesach. He says it's just a waste to give it to me. He tells people.
Give him my number.
The whole idea of mechira is to take it seriously. So why
Yeah, well, there are those. Well, no, because it's a mitzvah Torah to get rid of it. It's very interesting. That's the chiddush.
Yeah, but you don't have to.
No. You don't have to, so you can find a London way around it. Yeah, a legal way around it. But Lamaisi, it's not. That's the chiddush of the Torah, isn't it? It's not about tashkis to destroy your chametz. Because even if you leave half a loaf of bread over, you could argue it's about tashkis.
Because the whole idea of mechira as well is that if there was something left over you didn't know about under your couch or something, right? That's also sold. Like you sell
It's a double layer protection.
Yeah.
You've checked for it and you've made a hefker. It's an extra layer. It's an extra layer of protection, I think, to sell it. Because you can't leave it out. It's very interesting. You've got to keep it in sealed cupboards or in a room which is locked. It's a serious business. You don't want to come in contact with it on Pesach. So the Chazon was very, very strict about it. He said it's a genuine mechira, and he said even if the goy, he says, is laughing inside him, oh, this is just a spiel, yeah. This is, he realizes he's never going to come around with the balance. So it doesn't matter because that's called devarim shebelev. In Torah law, a sale is a sale, action is an action, and it doesn't make a difference what you're thinking, even if he thinks it's a joke, but he's doing the action he's supposed to do. So he said, although some achronim are mafaktik on it, Chazon was very, very stark on it. It's a genuine mechira. Don't worry about any problems with it. So okay. So if you can, look, there's a big question about shares in a company which sells chametz. You get all these wonderful shilas which crop up, the modern day shilas. So
in Israel.
what?
To open up on Shabbos, we found the same matter.
What the guy going?
I sold it to an Arab.
Sold to an Arab Shabbos.
They used to get big knesset, don't they, for opening Shabbos?
Right. So that's how they get around it. Right. So the big thing is, it's a puzzle. It says, "Can you show him that?"
About it.
Yeah,
No,
it's a legal loophole. Yeah. You find it. You find some of these things, and it's very interesting. It says, "Can you show him darkly Hashem?" The ways of Hashem are Yasha. So tzaddikim find a way to stay Yasha and keep it, and others will find a way around it. But at the end of the day, everyone wants to keep the mitzvah properly, and if we're you're in a predicament where there's a lot of money involved, but you've got to take it seriously. The point is that you yourself must be serious about it, and do it. So he just brings here. I've got here the sefer of Rav Nebensal, who was the Rav of the old city, mechitza, or something which will remind you, keep away from it, to the chametz which you sold to a goy, right? So 10 tefachim suffices, but I think most people lock it away in a cupboard or in a room or a garage or something. Okay, he says here, why did you just sell me chametz kalim though? No actual chametz, just chametz kalim. Now this is very interesting. You don't sell the goy the keli, because if you did, after Pesach you have to tovel it again. You're selling the chametz, any chametz which may be in the kalim. He says, but a keli you don't have to lock it up. The whole problem where you lock up the food yourself, and and it comes to eat it on Pesach. So you need a hecker to remind you it's been sold to the goy and leave it alone, don't touch it. But the keli, there's nothing there on the keli really, it's a clean keli. So he said, then you don't need a mechitza. He says, but put them in a place where you won't use them, but he doesn't need quite a reminder as proper food does. And then he mentions here, Hershey, he says, make sure you sell it in the right time. Yeah, it's a classic. It's a classic case. And then of course you get the big shiloh in if somebody in Eretz Yisrael has got chometz, so it's man Issa, and he's got and go. Is it where the chometz is or where the owner of the chometz is? You get all these amazing shilohs you get. They're all talked about in the postscript. So that's a little bit to start with, talking a little bit about Pesach. Now, just to finish off with Purim, I saw something very beautiful on Motzei Shabbos, which said, after Haman and Mordechai came off the horse, where did he go? And where did he go? So it says in the Pasuk, he went back to the Shah HaMelech, put his sackcloth back on, and carried on davening. Now, can you imagine how he must have felt while he was on that horse? And Haman's there, and he'd just given Haman a good old kick, yeah, just beforehand. He said, so Mordechai, you would have thought the first thing might be send a message to Esther. Haman just got a good beating this morning, sort of thing. He's on the fall or something. Nothing doing. He goes straight back to davening, and he was technically fasting. He might have still been fasting, but it was straight back to the Saki V'Tani, and carried on davening. So why was that so important? So says the Chazon Sofer, an amazing thing. He said the power of tefillah is so great. We don't quite appreciate what goes on when we daven for a chayla. He said the power of tefillah is so great because Baruch will accept those tefillahs. But there comes a time sometimes the chayla's time's up, he's got to go. But people are davening for him. Now, apparently recently there was a story in Mexico. A guy who came out of COVID, who was autotot, came out of hospital, survived, made a suicide, and he invited 18 people who didn't know him. And of course they asked him what's going on. So he said his neshama actually left his body in the hospital. He went up to Shemayim. He met his mother, and his mother said, what are you doing here? There's 18 people saying, Tehillim for you down there, go back down. And he must have revealed to him the names. And he invited these 18 people to the Suda Seidah to thank them. It's because of their Tehillim. That's 18 people. Now imagine 18,000 people saying Tehillim. Or 100,000 people saying Tehillim. Imagine what a power that must be in Shemayim. Says the Chazon Sofer, he said, you mustn't stop davening till the tzorah is over. He said, what happens with a chayla? Amazing thing. He said, with a chayla, what happens is, if in Shemayim, time is up, but people are davening for him, because the Baruch will make the chayla start getting better. So everyone says, Baruch Hashem is getting better, and they stop davening. Once they stop davening, then the guy goes. So he said, Mordechai understood, till Haman's Gezerah is overturned, the job is not done. The fact he had a good beating this morning, a good humiliation, it means nothing. And even when Haman was killed, it wasn't finished yet. The Gezerah still had to be overturned. So Mordechai went straight back, Latani, where he left off earlier that morning, because the job wasn't done yet. Till they'd overturned everything, the job wasn't done. So it's a moedig lesson. Whether it's for Cholim or any problem, whatever it is. It's interesting with benching Gomel, it's a similar halacha. Till you finish your journey, you don't bench Gomel. So even though let's say you're flying from New York to Frankfurt to Tel Aviv, and you're staying overnight in Frankfurt, you don't bench Gomel yet, because the journey's not complete. Or a Chodesh in his Rappe, till he's fully got the all clear from the hospital, doesn't bench Gomel. Somebody out of the nick, till he's cleared, or crossing the desert, it's till it's completed, you then thank the Kodesh Baruch Hu, but not before that. So Mordechai knew that, went straight back to carrying on davening till that Gezerah was overturned. And a beautiful piece I found in the Chazon Sofer on Motzei Shabbos. So I thought I wanted to say it over. Now, this week's Sedra, we've got a beautiful Parsha of Shabbos. I want to try and spend this week as much as I can, try and find as much ammunition, if you like, on how beautiful these psukim are talking about Shabbos. It gave me such a chizuk. Just reading the psukim are so beautiful. But just before this little Parsha of Shabbos, the Torah mentions the appointment of Betzalel as the chief manager of the building project of building the Mishkan. Now Betzalel, believe it or not, was 13 years old. That's all he was. Very young. Why is he called Betzalel? Betzael Kale. He was so great. His neshama was so great. It was like in the shadow of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In fact, an amazing thing happened. Moshe Rabbeinu actually told him to build the Kalim first, and then build the Mishkan. So Betzalel said to him, Moshe, he said, Uncle Moshe, the great uncle, the Rabbeinu Moshe, he said, first you build the building, then you put the stuff in it. If I build the materials first, where are we going to put them in the meantime? So Moshe Rabbeinu said to him, oh, he said, you're right, because he said to me, build it that way around, do it that way around. And that's why he called him Betzalel Kale. You must have been with me, the Neshama must have heard the message from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He was a very, very, very special person. But the Pasuk says like this, we'll come to the Pasuk in a minute. There was a fantastic story happened about 220 years ago, in Volozhin. Now, in the times of the Gemara, you left home and went to yeshiva. Those famous yeshivas, Pumbedisa and Surah, and the famous yeshivas in Bovel. So, if you lived locally, very good. But people came from out of town. In Europe, the way it was, in your hometown there was a base of Medrash. The local Rav was also the Rosh Yeshiva, and by and large, till you went out to work or whatever, you learnt locally. Occasionally there was a big yeshiva nearby, you'd move on to that yeshiva if you outgrew your yeshiva. But in each town there was like a little base of Medrash, or maybe a big base of Medrash, where you would learn. Reb Chaim Volozhin built the first modern style yeshiva where people would come from out of town, and you need obviously accommodation for the Bochrim, and a dining room of sorts, like the modern day style yeshiva, where people come from out of town. He was the first one to set up this, in the last couple of 100 years, this new way of going to learning yeshiva. So he had, like all yeshivas, a fundraising system, and he used to send a guy out to all the villages and towns around Volozhin and the farmers around Volozhin, and they would collect for the yeshiva, like everyone's had to do since then. So there was a farmer near Volozhin who used to give a very nice donation to the yeshiva. Every year, very nice donation. And the Meshulach, when he came back, would go through with Chaim Volozhin the list, and that's how it worked. One year, the Meshulach came up with a good idea. If he gets a new hat and a new coat and a better horse and wagon, he'll look more respectable, and people will give more money to the yeshiva. So they did. Got him a new hat and a new coat, and maybe a newer horse or a three-wheel wagon or something, something a bit more upgrade, turbo wagon. And when he went to this farmer, he gave much less. He dropped his donation right down. It's a bit surprising. See, the Meshulach didn't say anything. And when he got back to Volozhin, they went through the lists, and Reb Chaim noticed the donation had gone right down. So he sent a message to the farmer, next time you're in Volozhin, bringing your goods to town, pop in and say hello. So he did. He came, and Reb Chaim asked him, how come you drop your donation? You're always very, very generous to the yeshiva. So he said, Rebbe, he said, I want to support the yeshiva, I'm happy to support the yeshiva. But when I saw the guy with a new hat and a new coat and a new wagon, I thought, my money's going to buy his hat and coat and wagon. I don't want my money to go there. I want it to go to the yeshiva. So I thought, you've obviously got plenty of money, you don't need my money, and he cut his donation. So Reb Chaim said to him, he said, let me explain something. So he said, when Betzalel was appointed by name Betzalel, Ruach Elikim. Hashem's telling Moshe, I have filled him with the Spirit of God, B'chochma with wisdom, Tzvuna is understanding, using your wisdom, Uvadas, that's what she says is Ruach HaKodesh. Uvachol Malacha, he was a master craftsman at anything. Now why did he need all these things? The next passage explains. Lachashov machashavos, to think thoughts. La'asos, to work, Bazohov and the gold, Bakesed, the silver, of Anachoshes. Now, Jimmy, why does he have to think thoughts regarding the silver, the gold, the silver, and the copper? What's this thinking thoughts? It's to work with the copper and the gold and the silver. They have to make kalim out of it. What's this thinking thoughts? Said Reb Chaim Volozhin, but Betzalel could lift up the gold or silver or copper, whatever donation you gave, and they brought it, they were all piled up there. He could look at it, and he had Ruach HaKodesh. He could tell what the guy who donated it, what he was thinking. Lachashoy machshavos. He could look at it and tell if your intentions were very pure, you wanted to fulfill the mitzvah of building a Mishkan. He took that gold and he put it in the Oren, the pile for the Oren. Next one, 99%. That can go to the menorah. Next one, 97%, the Shulchan. He said he could look at it, Lachashoy machshavos, and he then allocated accordingly the gold and the silver and copper, which pile it went into to make which keli. Said Reb Chaim, do you know who decides where the money goes when you give a donation to a good cause? You the giver. If your intentions are pure, it will go to running the yeshiva. It won't go to the wagon and the hat and the coat of the mashulach. It goes to follows the intention of the donor. And if your intentions are sincere, it will go to Kodesh HaKadoshim. A little bit less, so it'll go to the Kodesh. A little bit less, it'll be outside in the Azara. It'll be somewhere else. Okay, he said, but we don't decide. He said, you decide. And if your intention is sincerely to support Torah, that's what you want to do, Hashem will make sure your money gets through to that cause. Now, yesterday, we were back at school online yesterday already. So we had a speaker from London, the head of Gift, where they donate food, have this food. It's like a semi-food bank, so they give out people donate lots of food to it. So he was talking about being a giver, being a taker, and he quoted Rav Dessler. Rav Dessler said an amazing thing. He said, if you force money out of somebody who doesn't want to give it, he said it's given with an ayin hara. It's given with a bad eye. He doesn't want to give it. He said there'll be no bracha on that money. Quite amazing. There'll be no bracha. He's got to give it by ayin tova. He's got to give it by ayin tova. He said, and that's why with the Mishkan, what does Hashem say the first thing? Kol nadiv leib. It's got to be generosity of the heart. There was no command to give. It was go and collect whatever people want to give, because to build the Mishkan, to build the base of Mikdash, it's got to be given with a rots and tov. It's got to have the goodness of God. That's why Hashem doesn't need our materials. Yeah, He wants our emotions. He wants our wish to build a house for Him. That's what He wants. He said, but we determine by our emotions where exactly it will be allocated in the building of that base of Mikdash. Now, after finishing what has to be built and who's going to build it, oversee the building, the Torah talks about Shabbos. It's very, very beautiful. And there's some things in this parasha don't occur anywhere else in the Torah. So it starts off like this. Vayoma Hashem el Moshe Leimer. Now, normally a parasha in the Torah starts off with Vayidaber. Vayidaber Hashem el Moshe Leimer. So the Mefarshim points out, Shabbos was already mentioned in the Aseret HaDibros. Shabbos was already mentioned with the Mon already. So it didn't need to start with Vayidaber, because this was not a new concept. Yeah, it wasn't a new concept. The concept of Shabbos they knew already. Va'ato daber el bnei Yisrael. You Moshe, you personally, nobody else must do this. Must speak to the bnei Yisrael leimer. Ach es shabsosai tishmoru. Enthusiasm, the greatest reasons to build the Mishkan. It doesn't push Shabbos out of the way. You can't build the base of Mikdash, you can't build the Mishkan on Shabbos. Now Hershey, why is that perplexing? Because when you've got a base of Mikdash, they do the Avodah on Shabbos, don't they? The Avodah is done on Shabbos when you've got a base of Mikdash. So why can't you build it on Shabbos? Why can't you build it on Shabbos? That's this question. So there's various good answers to this question. So Rashi, I'll just read out the Rashi. He says, even though I've commanded you to build the Mishkan, don't push Shabbos out of the way. You're running around and you're very enthusiastic about the Mishkan. Shabbos Shabbos doesn't get pushed out of the way. So Zalman Sorotsky says a beautiful, beautiful thought. A beautiful thought. He says Shabbos is the Kedusha of time. It's a day in the week where there's Kedusha in time. The base of Mikdash or the Mishkan is not Kedusha of time, it's the Kedusha of a place. A certain location has got Kedusha. So which one's better? Which one's got more Kedusha? And the answer is time, because time will always be there. There's always going to be every 7 days, as long as the world exists. There's going to be, the Zman of Shabbos will always be there. But the Beis HaMikdash and the Mishkan are not going to always be there. So therefore Kedushas HaZman is more permanent than Kedushas HaMakom, and therefore it can't push off Shabbos. It can't push off Shabbos. Now, very interestingly, a bris milah pushes off Shabbos, doesn't it? Very interesting. Building a base of Mikdash doesn't push off Shabbos, but a bris milah would push off Shabbos. So Moish, what's the difference? What's a bris milah got which building a base of Mikdash hasn't got? And it's very beautiful. He said Shabbos shows our connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. that we believe he created this world in 6 days and rested on the 7th day, and he's running this world. A Bris Milah does the same thing. It shows that HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this world, and he's chosen Klal Yisrael with Hashgacha Pratis. Klal Yisrael have been chosen for a very unique mission. So he said Bris Milah and Shabbos are teaching a very similar thing. So Bris Milah can be done on Shabbos. It's not really pushing off Shabbos. It's the same idea as Shabbos, showing a unique connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He says, but building a Beis Hamikdash, that's a mitzvah of the Torah. It's not showing a unique connection of Klal Yisrael directly to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's one of the mitzvahs of the Torah which has to be kept. So you can't shake a lulav unless you cut lulav off the tree. You can't serve in the Beis Hamikdash unless you build a Beis Hamikdash. So it's a slightly different idea. It's one of the mitzvahs that shows our commitment to the Torah, not our unique connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So now, it says 3 times in this parasha, Tishmoru, to guard the Shabbos. V'shomru b'nei Yisrael es HaShabbos. Eli, what's a shomer?
God.
What's a guard?
Okay, 9.
What's a shomer in the Torah? There's 3 types of shomer, yeah? Shomer chinam, shomer sacha, and a shoel, and a shoel. But if you rent it, the question is, what's he doing if you rent something? What level you've got? Listen to these words of Rav Hirsch. Beautiful, beautiful words. He said, this is the first time in the Psukim that the term Shemira is applied to the mitzvah of Shabbos. And he mentions it 3 times in this pasuk. The use of this term teaches us to regard Shabbos as a precious possession given to us and entrusted to our care. We've got to look after it. Hashem says, you are a shomer on Shabbos. Yeah, a shomer Shabbos. Yeah, we are the shomer. All the duties of shomerim devolve upon us in regard to Shabbos. For example, when you're a shomer of something, you can't be posher, you can't be negligent. You've got to do your job. We may not be negligent towards it, pshir. And now also when you're looking after something, you don't have to touch it, you don't have to use it for personal use. You've got to look after it and just make sure it's looked after. You can't use it. You've got a barrel of wine, you can't climb on it to get to the top shelf and get a safer down. That's using the barrel. Or we can't lay our hands on it, which is called shlichus yad. We must never lose sight of it, nor tamper with it according to our own ideas. Instead, we are to be scrupulous and vigilant in keeping away and fending off anything that might damage this treasure entrusted to our care. Now, this is amazing. He says, I'll come to it in a minute. Now, carries on the pasuk. What's so special about Shabbos? Ki oisi beini ubeinechem l'doirei seichem. It's a sign for all eternity between me and you. Hashem gives you kedusha. Now, what's this sign between me and you? Listen to these words, unbelievable. We know the famous Gemara. The Gemara said, HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to Moshe, I've got a very special gift I want to give to Klal Yisrael. I have a Shabbos Shema, and it's called Shabbos. V'ani mevakesh litna li Yisrael. I want to give it to Klal Yisrael. Go and tell them. Go and tell them I've got this very special present for them. So he says, the world to come is called Yom Shekulei Shabbos. The future is called a day where it's going to be Shabbos the whole time. But we've no idea how we're going to enjoy that. He says, we've no idea how the neshama is going to enjoy Olam Haba. As long as your neshama is attached to your body, the only things we can think of about enjoyment are things which the body enjoys. We can't understand what will the neshama enjoy when it's not attached to the body. He says that's the reason why the Torah never speaks openly about the reward of the Olam Haba, because you won't understand it. He says openly about it, refers to it. While we're still in this body, we won't understand the concept of a reward of a neshama outside the body. He said, however, Shabbos, what's Shabbos called? Me'en Olam Haba. He says, Shabbos hu echad mishishim v'Olam Haba. Shabbos is a taste of Olam Haba. L'chein nasan lehem mitzvah Shabbos We were given this mitzvah, shemin oinig Shabbos, from when we enjoy Shabbos, yasigu tam, we'll get a little taste, an idea, me'inyani olam haba. So he said that's the present Hashem wanted to give to Yisrael. It's not the Shabbos in this world, it's Shabbos in the next world. The Yom Shekulah is Shabbos. Why have we got Shabbos now? So you get a little taste now of what that Shabbos is going to be in the future. He says, is that a reference to the Schar Olam Haba, which is called the Shabbos HaGadol, or Yom Shekulah, a day which is all Shabbos. Shehi Matana Tova, and that's in HaKadosh Baruch Hu's storehouses. And we have no idea what that means up there. V'ani Mavakesh Litna L'Yisrael, I want to give that gift to Klal Yisrael Olam Haba. V'ani Roitze L'Hoidia Ma'am Imenu B'Olam Hazeh, but I want to give them a little taste of it in this world. Shezeh Alidei Mitzvah Shabbos, She'al Yodoi Nargish Ta'anukei HaOlam Haba. There'll be a little taste of what Oinig Olam Haba by keeping Shabbos. So he says that's the meaning of the pasuk. Lodas, by keeping Shabbos, you will know that I intend to make you holy. Ki ani Hashem mikadishchem. He says, Mashi yikadosh esem ba'olam haba. What we're going to be in the world to come. Fun of. Do we get this concept from? Where do we get a little understanding of this concept? Mitzvah Shabbos. Therefore, says something very beautiful. When you've got a shop and it says, I don't know, B&M bargains, yeah, so you know what shop is inside. What happens if that sign branch, B&M bargains has gone bust, or the relocated? You know there's going to be like next to everybody knows there's going to be a little there. So says the Chavis, you got a home. What's the sign of who lives in this house? He said if Shabbos is kept in this house, in home, it means there's a sign outside the door saying, in this house lives a Jew. He said if Nebuchadnezzar gives up Shabbos, he said the ois comes down, the sign comes down, it's saying there's no longer a living Jew doesn't live in this house anymore. So that's the ois. He said Shabbos is the mitzvah where we publicly broadcast, in this house lives a Jew. He said, "Aski oisi beini v'nechem l'dorisechem, l'taski ani Hashem v'chadishchem." It says something very beautiful here. The Medrash says it's me'en olam haba, and it says Shabbos adds kedusha into Klal Yisrael. I find the right Medrash. It says it here. Yeah, Magid, Shabbos Mosefes Kedusha al Yisrael. He says Shabbos pumps Kedusha into Klal Yisrael. So why is it? So Ravik the Miller writes somewhere. Why is it you stand up for an older Yid? Why do you? What's an older Yid got that you haven't got? The answer is that he's kept Shabbos more than you've kept him. So he said he has got more Kedusha in his neshama. He's probably done more mitzvahs than you. So you're standing up, respecting the Kedusha, the extra Kedusha he's got in his neshama. That's really what you're respecting. Now, so it mentions it a second time. Ushamartem es ha-Shabbos, ki kodesh hi lachem. You've got to guard the Shabbos. To stress it again, you must look after Shabbos. Ki kodesh hi lachem. Now this is one of the sources to save a life. You can break Shabbos. Because Shabbos is for you to keep it. So now, if we mechal one Shabbos and save a life, he's going to keep many more Shabbos, aren't we? We're now making sure Shabbos will be kept in many, many more occasions. So the Shabbos is for you. You're not there for Shabbos. Shabbos is for your benefit. So therefore, a Jewish life will override Shabbos. And there's a few other sources for it here as well. So another one is, we'll come to it in a minute. So it says, Mechaleleha Mos Yumos. What does it mean, Mechaleleha Mos Yumos? Says Rav Hirsch. He says, Chilul Shabbos literally means the killing of Shabbos. Now, does anyone know there's only two mitzvahs in the Torah which make a difference if they're done in front of 10 people or not? Anyone know what they are? Oh, that's a... In front of 10 people is worse than stand breaking Shabbos. Right? Yeah, it's called Chilul Shabbos by Hes, yeah? Shabbos under 10 Yidden, he's lost everything. He's got a halakhic status of a god. The other one, of course, is Chilul Hashem. Chilul Hashem Barabim is worse than the Chilul. He says it literally means killing Shabbos, i.e. destroying the living and life-giving ideal of the Shabbos. Essentially, this can only be done in the presence of others. For whoever violates the sanctity of the Shabbos in the presence of others, the crime is you're ruining Shabbos for them. They keep Shabbos. But if you see somebody not keeping Shabbos, it makes Shabbos less important to you. He said it diminishes their inner experience of its Kedusha and even deprives them of this experience altogether. Now, I know that's all, yeah? Over the years, there's been the famous stone throwers of Shabbos and all these things. But the idea of shouting Shabbos when a person sees Chilul Shabbos is actually right. So you might just be a hothead and shout Shabbos, Shabbos, Shabbos. Yeah, you shout at people. But the truth is, when you see somebody breaking Shabbos, it does ruin it for you as well. It takes away your Kedusha. So by shouting Shabbos, what you're really doing is reinforcing to yourself is Shabbos. Because it's very, very easy. It's such a delicate feeling and emotion of the Kedusha of Shabbos. This is a special day. It's very, very easily damaged if one sees other people desecrating it.
Not many men shout, because then they're not going to change.
No, they're not going to shout. That's another cheshbon. That's another thing. But besides yourself, you've got to realise if you.
Throwing stones at Michal.
No, the that was wrong. That was, of course, I was wrong. Yeah, I'm saying. But the actual concept of shouting Shabbos.
Yeah, but then you're just giving them a straw.
Yeah. As far as how it's going to affect people, it's not going to affect anybody. It's not going to help anybody throwing stones. But the idea of reinforcing in yourself that it's Shabbos is actually very true.
Yeah, but
that point is very true.
Shabbos, if two of you are screaming Shabbos, Shabbos, and you give him a straw, so he gets punished.
What? Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
We can talk about it because these people, you know what I mean, who definitely drive in areas where there's religious Jews, they wouldn't do it in a Muslim area, would they? Offend the Muslims, would they? That's true. They wouldn't do it there. So think, before what are they doing? There are famous stories of people who made bad tshuva by some people that didn't know, drove in the wrong area, and someone came up to them and told them and everything. Very interesting. Shlomo Zalman Auerbach said, if someone slows his car down and someone asks you directions, you say to them very gently, you shouldn't really be driving on Shabbos, but now you are, and tell him the quickest way to get there. Because if you don't, he'll slow down and stop and ask somebody else directions. So he'll be Shabbos again. You say very gently, you shouldn't really be driving on Shabbos. Quite amazing. Right? So, what? Yeah, you can tell pretty much. Yeah, now, so he says here, he said, keeping alive the idea of Shabbos in the minds of the people is such an essential part of the purpose of Kedusha Shabbos, and killing this ideal is so damaging that, as is the case in no other law except the understandable one of Chilul Hashem, the concept of Farhesia has a decisive influence on the laws of Chilul Shabbos. Hence, one who desecrates Shabbos b'Far Hesia in the presence of a national community, i.e. 10 adult members of Klal Yisrael, is equated with an Ovid Avodah Zarah and is considered a Mumma L'chol HaTorah Kula, one who is broken with Yiddishkeit completely. That's what amazing. We're talking about amazing, yeah? Showing you nothing to do with this. Right? Now I saw a beautiful, amazing story. So normally we associate Chilul Shabbos with a Mumma. Someone who does it in public, he's a Mumma. Apparently, in Russia there was a time where the Yidden were only allowed to live in a certain area. It's called the Pale of Settlement. For many, many years they were hemmed in and they couldn't live anywhere else. But for a fee, you could live in Moscow and Petersburg. For a fee, this is yeah. So there was a time though, about 30,000 Yidden managed to get permission. Most of them were bankers and high up. They got permission a time further in Moscow. But they were given a choice. One day they decided to throw all the Yidden out, 30,000 Yidden. He said, and they weren't showing Shabbos Yidden. They were not from at all, these Yidden. They were given a choice: either convert to Christianity and stay, or back into the Pale of Settlement. And all 30,000 packed up and moved out. When they told the Chofetz Chaim, he said, Yidden like this, he said, they're not Mumrim. They're not the Mumrim the Torah is talking about. Yidden don't keep Shabbos. They said, we're not giving up our Yiddishkeit. We're going back in there. Even if they lost everything, their fancy houses and the jobs and everything, they went back. He said, the Torah is not speaking about such Yidden. Quite amazing. Chofetz Chaim speaks the most about encouraging people to keep Shabbos and the severity of it. And he said, but these Yidden, he said, they're not that category. He said, the fact that their attachment is still very, very strong. And he said, the Chazal aren't talking about such people. Okay, so Rashi says something very interesting here. Rashi says, on Mechalalel Mos Yumos, Rashi says it's not necessarily talking about doing a malacha. Very interesting. Rashi says, Hanoihig b'choil b'kedushasa. He's not doing any malachas, but besides not doing malachas on Shabbos, there's a mitzvah to foster an atmosphere of kedusha in your home. So your Shabbos table talk should not be weekday talk, because you're then going back into the week. Shabbos is a day to switch off from this. Now this is very, very hard, especially if you've got a big deal on, and you know it was like, you know, it was rumbling on, and you had all headache from it all week. I don't actually know how you switch off from it. I really don't know. I will remember this, but I remember this when I was a little boy, lived on Singleton Road. So his dad was here every so quite often for Shabbos. And I remember Mamash, he was makpid not to discuss anything of the week on Shabbos. Unbelievable. And it would upset him if the conversation, he would tell joke after joke after joke. That wasn't a problem. In fact, we knew he'd had a hard week if the jokes were particularly good on Shabbos. He was letting off steam. But I remember he was very, very makpid not to talk about business in Yonim on Shabbos. Because that's what Shabbos is meant to be. You're meant to switch off and focus on more important things on Shabbos. Now, I'll tell you something interesting. What happens? Shabbos is called the Mekayah Bracha. Now, the beautiful motion of your mobile phone. How long does it take to charge up a mobile phone?
An hour.
2 hours.
An hour?
3 hours.
3 hours.
2 hours.
2 hours. All right. So if you pull it out after an hour, how much is the charge? 50%. Now, to get the bracha the 6 days of the week, you've got to plug your neshama in to the Mekayah Bracha for 24 hours. You then recharge, the bracha comes into the world, and you pick it up the following 6 days. But if you turn Shabbos back into a weekday, you're pulling the plug out of the socket. The recharge on your neshama is gone. So therefore, you're not doing yourself a favour. You might be talking about a deal and a big deal. It won't happen. Because the bracha which should be coming into you on Shabbos, you've pulled the plug out of the socket. You pulled the recharge out of the socket. So that's Mechalalel Mos Yumos. You're killing yourself off. What you could have achieved in the coming week by Noeg Chol B'Kedushasa, taking what should have been the atmosphere of Kedusha Shabbos and be Mechalel it with mundane talk, things which you can't do on Shabbos, you shouldn't talk about them on Shabbos. That's what's happening. That's what's happening when a person does that. So lav dafka malacha. A malacha is a complete breaking of Shabbos, but there's also the atmosphere of Shabbos, and there's unbelievable. Tosfos brings you Yerushalmi. Can you imagine this? Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, his mother, she was an old lady, and old women talk. They talk, and you used to say to her, "Ima, it's Shabbos today," and she'd keep quiet. What's that? It's an atmosphere of Shabbos. You know what I mean? It's an atmosphere of Shabbos. It wasn't Chil Shabbos, but Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, you can imagine what his Shabbos was like. Yeah, can you imagine the Kedusha Shabbos? Yeah, but already then to even talk too much to him was a Chilul Shabbos. It was a profaning of Kedusha Shabbos. It's a very, very hard thing to do this. Very, very hard. You know, especially if Shabbos meals are long. So you start to schmooze. But you know, if you're good at singing Zmiris and you can get some Divrei things to speak, we can't imagine how much Kedusha we're preserving, keeping the natural Kedusha Shabbos. Don't forget, Shabbos doesn't come because of us. Yom Tov comes because of us. We decide when Yom Tov is. But Shabbos, HaKadosh Baruch Hu decides when Shabbos is. It's fixed. Every 7 days it comes and goes automatically. So we can either latch into this Kedusha or we can be Mechalel it. And if we're Mechalel it, the only ones who lose out, or HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't lose out, we lose out because we're profaning the Kedusha Shabbos. It's not easy. What I recommend, a little bit I used to do when my kids were little, I find it very hard now because they're all grown up. I'm finding it hard. I used to get some nice stories, there's plenty of storybooks. You can ask them about the Seder or whatever. They're always want to do it, but as much as possible to keep the Kedusha Shabbos pumping. Davening is longer, so that takes up some time. Shlaf Gevaldik, eating plenty, right? But casual talk, table talk, and how we speak on Shabbos, that really I think is the make or break of us latching into the bracha Shabbos has got to give us. We blow it sometimes with the conversation, which could have been very meaningful and very powerful. Every Seder's got so much to learn, every time of the year there's so much to talk about. Chizuk there, we would be the beneficiaries if we can put some more into that aspect of Kedusha Shabbos. Okay, we'll stop there. B'ez Hashem. Carry on tomorrow night.
Wow.
Yeah.
Then why is there a guy